welcome back to another tutorial. My name is Stefan Key, and in this tutorial I want to show you how you can easily create a chill, organic, shamanic, down-tempo kind of track. And in general, down-tempo music is one of my favorite genres for a couple of years now. I started out producing kind of like deep house and melodic techno until I heard down-tempo for the first time. I think it was in 2016 at a cacao ceremony event in Berlin. And yeah, I was super overwhelmed and really enchanted by the quality of the music, how it felt, how it made me feel, how it sounded, like all the beautiful organic sounds, the nature sounds, the shamanic elements. It was almost like a ceremony with sound. And yeah, I was super inspired. And then I did a lot of down-tempo productions and had a couple of releases. And yeah, I was touring and playing a lot of down-tempo events and festivals until COVID happened. And yeah, now I'm not traveling so much, obviously, and I'm more also into meditation and sound healing music, but I still love down-tempo, still do remixes and tracks for compilations and stuff like that. And what I also really like is doing templates, which means creating loops and samples for other people to be able to use them in their own productions. And what I'm going to show you today is the template that I created called DOWNTEMPO SHAMANICO, and you can get it on my website. And the thing is, what I'm going to show you here, you don't need my sounds per se. You can also just use those as examples and then find your own sounds. But I also really recommend you to get the pack because it's pretty awesome, and I spent a whole month of passionate work on it, and I think it's totally worth it. And yeah, we will dive in a little bit, and I will explain why I chose the elements I chose, because I think they are key or very important elements for a down-tempo track. And so if you open the pack, what you see is this basically a couple of groups. So here is the main group. You can ignore that because that is just sidechain compression for my voice, because when we play music and I talk over, I want the music to be ducked away by my voice so that you can hear me all the time. So this group is not part of the pack, but we start with the kicks. Obviously, those are the bass drums. I mean, down tempo in essence is nothing else than slowed down techno or house tracks in a sense. Of course, I mean, let's say from my understanding of down tempo, of course, there's other down tempo music, like the kings of down tempo, like Kruder and Dorfmeister. They definitely have another vibe and another style, and that's a whole other genre, and that's not the genre that I'm talking about. I'm talking more about down-tempo in a sense that you know it from Berlin, and then it emerged all over the world. South America a lot, like a lot of South American artists had this electro, folkloric, shamanic, indigenous music with basically electronic dance music elements. And so when I say down-tempo, I mean basically like a slowed down techno or house track in essence in regards of the arrangement and the elements, but of course a lot more organic, slower, as I said, slowed down. And yeah, it's a different intention. It's not so much about techno could be very dark and very machinistic, as it says, like technology, right? It's a different vibe. And down-tempo, organic down-tempo is more like heart opening and warm and enchanting and connected to nature. And as I said, for me it's like a ceremony, and this is how I approach the production, as you will see later in the video. when we look at the reference tracks and when I talk about how to structure a track and what is important for me. So yeah, basically, like for me, music is medicine, and we can use sound in beautiful ways that can lift up our mood, but we can also create magic worlds where we can be enchanted and reconnect with the beauty of life and nature. And this is how I started doing it, just by trying to create medicine for myself, like creating sonic spaces that I'm comfortable being in, that I find soothing or inspiring or enchanting. And so this is basically how I approach this kind of music as medicine for myself. And if I feel inspired and uplifted, and if I feel more connected and more calm and more peaceful, then I hope, and I'm pretty sure actually, that other people will feel that as well. So that's basically a little bit of background information. That being said, I also believe it's really important, the intention of the person making the music. So if you want to create music that is heart opening or healing or inspiring, of course it's important that you are in this state of being. So if you want, you can create a beautiful atmosphere in your studio. For instance, light some incense. I just lighted some Palo Santo. Usually I drink a cup of beautiful raw organic ceremonial cacao because it's really heart opening for me, and it's really establishing this connection with Mother Nature for me, which is for me the essence of organic downtempo music. It's basically honoring Mother Nature, it's honoring the earth, it's honoring the beauty of life, and it's like a musical prayer and a ceremony to honor the beauty of life. So that's basically the intention. And yeah, usually when I drink cacao, I feel extra connected, even though I'm already in a beautiful place in Costa Rica in the jungle, so I'm pretty much always surrounded by beautiful nature. But cacao can help also if you are not in a lucky situation like me and you are in a city or something. I recommend to get some raw organic cacao that is coming from places like Costa Rica or Guatemala or Bali or Bolivia or whatever, but then through the cacao you can connect with the magic also, and it is very heart opening, it is very activating and very inspiring. All right, so that being said, let's have a look actually at the template. So basically what you find here are elements that can be found in any electronic music track, because in the end downtempo is still electronic music, right? So we have the kicks, and I have soft kicks and hard kicks here, and yeah, let's have a listen. What is the difference? Let me just turn off these guys here so we see all the samples better. So let's have a listen to a soft kick. Oh, now the reference track is playing. That is for later. Bring up the volume a little bit. Soft kick. Different styles, and then a bit harder. So obviously kicks are very important elements also in general for the vibe of the track. If you want it to be more mellow, then you can have the softer kicks. If you want it to be more punchy and driving and aggressive, you can of course have more harder kicks. And it's funny, the way that this template is built, it can actually go both ways. It can go pretty let's say dark and nocturnal and pretty deep in a sense, but it can also be super smooth and soft and dreamy. So you have really like all the colors of the spectrum you can find in this. And so yeah, we have the kicks, then we have the bass line. So those are basically the foundations, right, for the rhythmic part of the track, or let's say the low end of the track, the kick and the bass line. So obviously the kick being the pulse and the rhythm, and the bass line being supportive creating groove and movement. Can also be more subtle. That's pretty melodic, this bass. So basically, all those clips here that you can see are loops that I've recorded with analog synthesizers or with software analog synthesizers, and everything is tuned to the key of C minor, so everything is working well together, so you can just jam intuitively. And that is also the way that I would invite you, if you end up getting the pack, how you approach this, right? So let's turn this off again. And let's walk you quickly through, and then we're gonna have a listen, or then we're gonna make a demo try. So we have the percussions here after the bass line, and there's tribal percussions, organic percussions. Those are all loops, really beautiful. Then we have lower percussions, which are like frame drums and shamanic drums and stuff like that. All beautiful rhythmic loops. And then we have high percussions like shaker and other high percussions like rattle and metallic percussions and stuff like that. So that was the percussion section. So this is basically the whole rhythmic section. And then we have also the atmospheric section, which is the drones. So we're gonna have a listen to a drone in a second. And the drones are basically very low notes, and they are sustained, and they create kind of the bass foundation atmospherically. So they are very simple in nature, but also very, you could say, textural, or they create like a trance-like effect because they are pretty much just one note and they keep playing. They have this grounding effect, but they also have this effect of putting us in kind of a trance, you know, because it's like this repeating element, and yeah, it is creating this soothing trance. And there's different types of drones, and they're all pretty cool atmospheric drones. Then the synth pads, and they are divided in chord pads and melodic pads. That means while drones are single notes, chord pads are actually chord progressions, and they create more emotional content. So if the drones create some atmosphere, then the pad will take it to the next emotional level. Like, this is really important. The choice of the pad will really determine the emotional quality of the track, and this is usually how I start a track, with a pad, because for me it's really important to have the feeling first. And in general, like as I said, this is a very intuitive approach, at least the way that I work, and it goes all with feeling. I have no agenda whatsoever. I just know I want to make music, and then I just let myself being guided by my feeling, and I start with the pads. And here we have the chord pads, so these are chord progressions, and then we have melodic pads, which are more like a melody, kind of sustained notes, but more than a drone, and definitely in a higher register. And then after the pads, we have the melodies, right? So obviously the melodies are kind of the lead elements, and those are the synth melodies. So this is the whole synth section, the drones, the pads, and the melodies from the synth. And they are there to create movement and to create dynamic, and also kind of an anchor. Like if it's a melody that is repeating, a simple melody, then this is something that we can attach to as a listener to find stability. And then we have organic instruments, like I call this mallets, but actually I realized kalimbas and stuff, they are not mallet instruments, or mallets even. I'm German, so I pronounced it a bit funny. But yeah, basically those are more like metallic instruments, you could say, right? And they are pretty small, and they sound all pretty similar, like music box, marimbola, kalimba, but all those beautiful twinkly, neat little instruments that create this beautiful tribal feeling, because those are pretty much native instruments used by different indigenous people, built by indigenous people. And then we have stringed instruments, it's just the berimbau and a couple of harps here, and then flutes. Love flutes. Lots of beautiful flutes here. We can have a listen maybe in a bit. And then really important also for me, almost as important as the pads, are the atmospheric sounds. And those are more like background sounds that can be used as transition elements in the arrangement. And we're gonna have a look at that in the arrangement, how to use them. But they basically support the whole atmosphere you're in, and they will not necessarily play as a loop. You probably want to use them as a one shot or just an intro and in the outro. And then, very important, the nature sounds. So those are all like field recordings of nature, right? So we have day and night, and then we have a water section, a rain section, and a wind section. So those are really beautiful, high quality field recordings from the places that I've been traveling to, and also recordings from friends who were traveling and sending it to me. So this is a beautiful, vast selection of field recordings. And this is also really important for me. If I don't start with a pad, then I start with a nature sound, because for me, as I said, it's all about the mood, it's all about the feeling, and this is definitely creating some mood already. So let's give this a try. Let's put here some birds from the rainforest, maybe. See, beautiful. And then maybe let's put some water, maybe a little water stream. Okay, so now this is already a beautiful atmosphere, already you feel something. And now let's find a nice pad that could go with it first. Maybe like a synth pad. Let's see what this is saying. Bird pad. Okay, that's pretty nice. It's mystical. See, that is really mystical, and already we are in a pretty mystical mood. Let's try this one. See how the mood is changing, how important the choice of the pad is, or like in this case also the chord progressions, like if you're not working with this template, but if you want to create your own sounds, like the chord progression, whether it's major or minor, is really important. And then also the color of the synth, like the pad. Like this is very bright, where the other one was a bit more dark. For now, let's just stick with this. And let's just put a kick. Why not? And maybe a bass line. So let's see if we can put in melody. Find a beautiful melody for that. Maybe let's go for something natural first. Let's see. Balafon. That's kind of nice, working well together. So now if I want to add one of these, I just duplicate the group and then add another melody to it. crashing a little bit. I like this one better. Let's check the synth melodies. Something like that maybe, and then let's add some shaker. Percussions. Maybe a second pad. Let's try the melodic one. Percussions here, the rattle. And let's try some of the organic percussions here. Creating more dynamic. See, and that is the whole idea. You can already see that just like very intuitively create something really beautiful and nice, you know, something that works well together. And this is how I would, you know, in general suggest to work with the template, just like really intuitively and just finding elements that work well together, you know. You don't necessarily need an element of each channel, but you could. It's like really up to you also, and also up to the tracks that you like, that you try maybe to recreate in your own way. And so let's try another one. Let's put everything to 0 and let's put something night sound. Let's get it like a little bit more mystical. Maybe some frogs, and again I can just copy that if I want some more night atmospheres. Then I go maybe for the swamp ambience. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, let's check out the drones and let's see if we can find something nice. Forest meditation, that sounds promising. Okay, not bad. Let's try Forbidden Forest. Whew. Okay, we're getting pretty dark here. Okay, let's try the Crystal Palace maybe. Yeah, you can see like all the drones, they are more like mystical, dark, kind of like eerie, you know. So unless you want to go a little bit darker and a little bit more mystical, you don't necessarily want to use them. Oh, nice. Throat banging, that's cool. That's very interesting. Let's see if we find a pad. Yeah, so the thing with the drone is it's already taking up a lot of frequency range. It's very full already. So that's more maybe for something meditative. Let's see what this sounds like. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. Enchanted Forest, that sounds good. So maybe let's see if they work together. Pretty much in the same frequency range, so maybe you want to find something higher. Let's check one of the melodies here. For an advanced section in the arrangement, I'm still looking for something more mellow. So maybe let's check the kalimba here. And let's just check a kick. Yeah, that works well. Alright, so I think you get the idea. Basically, you just play around and you find things that you feel work well together, but also that kind of fit the theme, you know, but there's no rules. Actually, I just go by feeling and I pretty instinctively or intuitively get a yes or no pretty quickly for a sound. So then you keep just adding elements, you know, and at some point you maybe feel, okay, now I have everything together. I have beautiful ambience, atmospheres, drones, pads, and a nice rhythm going. And now I want to start an arrangement. And let's have a look at a reference track. That's a very easy way to get an idea and see how other people have done it, or like see a track that is already arranged and analyze it a little bit. And for this, I will switch the view now. So I'm going from the session view to the arrangement view. And here you can see a reference track. In this case, it's a remix I did, I don't know, 4 years ago or something. And what we need to do first is we need to warp the track, because we want to work with locators that we're going to put here on the timeline. And in order for this to work in sync with the measurements here, we have to warp it. So we click on warp. An easy way to do it is finding the first bass drum. So it looks like the first bass drum is here. Let's have a look. Cannot hear it because it's muted. Yeah, so again. Here's the first bass drum. So what we want to do is we want to zoom in until we see the warp marker here. Double click on it and then right click, set 1-1 here. And then you can see now it starts counting from the first kick. And now I can say warp from here straight. And now you see it was jumping in to position, and now I can check. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good, but actually it should be here because we want the kicks to be on the grid. And then maybe let's have a look at the end here, 145. You see, oh, it's also a little bit off. And now Ableton tells you actually the original tempo, which is around 87. So I can get rid of this one, and then this one will jump into position. And now we have a warped track. And as you can see, the tempo now is in 90 BPM. And the template comes actually in 80 BPM, but you can easily put it up to 90 because in this case I did it because the reference track is in 87. So 90 is pretty close. So now we have it warped, and now it is actually showing us an accurate representation on the grid, and you can already see something pretty interesting. In general, when we look at it just as the waveform, you know, you see there's dynamic, right? It starts. Then when we see this as energy, in a sense, you know, amplitude, you could see it as energy also because it's all that is. It starts with very low energy and then it's increasing and then it's building up in energy and then there's a drop a little bit and then it's building up again and then there's a drop again. So it is kind of like a wave. You can see the arrangement like a wave. And also it's all about tension and release, creating tension and release. And how we're going to do that, we will have a listen. The interesting thing is when we are in 4/4 music right now, which means like every bar there's a quarter note over 4 bars. So that's the standard electronic music time signature, 4/4. Then you can already see a pattern emerging here. You see I set the loop to 8 bars, right? And if I go through in step of 8 bars, you can already see, oh, there's something happening, right? And this is because 8 is a magic number in electronic music. In general, it's all like the doubles of 2, basically, but for some reason, intuitively, after 8 bars, we expect something to change. And probably also because all the tracks are being more or less done this way. So they also say if you have like an 8-bar loop, then you can make a track out of it. And I agree, but then it's also all about the arrangement. So let's actually have a listen and let's go in steps of 8 and let's see what we hear. And because I did the track, I also can tell you a little bit about the intention behind it. And again, I love this track very much. It's a very dear friend, amazing producer, Pra, who did the original track, which is super beautiful. And I got his stamps, and then I was invited to make a remix. And as I said, for me, a downtempo track, organic, shamanic downtempo track is like a ceremony. And each ceremony has like an opening and a closing, right? So for me, the introduction part, the first part, is the opening of the ceremony part where you kind of set the intention, where you kind of set the stage, and where the listener gets an idea, okay, you know, I'm in a new place now and something is going to happen. I don't want it to like start right away with all the elements that I've gathered. I really want to start slowly and take the listener by the hand, so to say, and put him on a journey, like here, come into this magic world step by step, right? And then at some point the ceremony is over and then we have to close the circle again. We have to make the person of the ceremony aware that the journey is coming to an end, and this is then the outro, which is pretty similar to the intro, and you could also call this like a book ending. So I'm pretty much using similar elements for the intro and the outro, so that we have this effect of recognizing like, okay, so this, I've heard this before. Okay, so this feels like home, and with this good feeling, of safety and of kind of being, back where we were, or like, let's say something familiar. That's a good feeling to let somebody go. So that's basically the idea behind it. And now let's actually have a listen. And when we right click, we can create those locators, right? So I click locator and I can rename this, and I name this intro. So let's have a listen maybe to the first 16 bars, which is 2 times 8. And you can see already here 8 bars, and at the 9th bar something changes. You see elements are being added, and let's have a listen how this sounds. Bring the volume up a little. And here's the drop, and that's pretty common, at least for my productions. You can see a pattern here. Usually my intro is around 16 to 32 bars long. It really depends. In this case it was 16, which is pretty classical techno house kind of intro length. And then we have the drop here. So I right click, make another locator, and call this drop. And drop means when the bass line is hitting, or the kick. In this case there's another drop with the bass line coming here, and you could see like this is the intro, and here I add some percussions. And as you already hear, I love organic percussions. I love layering, and I love that it's not like super tight, and you can hear, like if you hear the rhythm, it's like pretty funky, or let's say like it's not like super straight. It's very organic, very textural, and this is what I love in general about this genre, is the organic percussions that you can use pretty much anything that you like, and for me, I love layer stuff. And maybe if we had listen from the beginning again, you hear like the nature sounds already, like the birds, and then there's a flute, right? So this is kind of like the opening of the ceremony. Beautiful ocarina. Is that actually not a flute? Imitating the bird sounds. Beautiful instrument. And you hear a synth pad also in the background already. Now the percussions are being added, and then we work our way towards the drop, and then you hear a little transition sound. Right, so let's make a transition here. Transition effect. Let's go back in steps of 8. So basically what I do in my arrangements is, as I build the track, I almost exponentially keep adding elements. That's why I also, before I start, I jam in the session view, right? And I have all the sounds, and I usually have a lot that I feel they work well together, and I jam with them, and I get a feeling for the arrangement. And then as I'm building the track, you know, from the intro and from the drop, and then you can see that each 8 bars, almost like, let's say I add 2 new elements here, and then I add 4 elements here, and then I add 8 elements here, almost, you know, like it's really like a almost exponential or like a doubling sequence of adding elements. And this is just also because over time you want to create dynamic and energy, right? And how you can create dynamic is, of course, by adding more percussion elements, and then also from low to high, because higher frequencies we perceive as more energetic. And so we have the drop here. And here, after 24 bars, which is also like a critical point for me, is usually where I put in the clap or like something like a clap. So it's not really a clap, it's something drizzling, like crackling. But that will be the part. And then after 32 bars, here I bring the clap. Okay, so then let's say we got this like organic percussions. And here's the main drop. So here we put drop bass line and claps also. And here you can also see there's a little gap, right? And this is just, again, to create tension. Like we really like when the bass is there and the kick. And when we take that away, we create a little tension. But this is also making us aware, like, oh, what's going on? And then we are more receptive actually for the drop again. And this is a very easy way to transition between sections. Just take out the kick for a bit, 1 bar or 2. So as I said, you know, like a lot of new elements coming in. There's a new melody coming in. There's shaker coming in. And then here again, and we could call this like the build, right? The build up, because now we're building energy, building momentum, building dynamic until it's peaking, and then it's getting into the break to create more tension again and to give also like a little space to breathe. And also to shift a little bit the narrative in the story. But yeah, so right now we're in the build up, still like exponentially adding elements. So here, this part, again, 8, right? First 8 bars, and then the second 8 bars, a lot of new elements, percussions, melodies, it's building, growing. The track and the story is unfolding. Okay, and now as we go towards the break, you know, like here, this was kind of the peak, and then we start to build down a little bit, you know. So we take elements away again, we make space so that we're not dropping fully into the void, from the track full going and then dropping into the void. That can be cool, also. That's a very legit way of creating a lot of tension and a lot of surprise. But because this is a very smooth journey, I don't want to irritate people too much, and I want to make it like gradual and gentle, so I'm taking gently elements back again so that when we go into the break, where usually there's no kick and not necessarily a lot of groove going on, um, then the transition will be smoother. So let's have a listen. And also let's check how long the break is. Haha, surprise, it's 16 bars. It's either a 16 or 32 bars, usually for me. And the thing is, once you found like a formula that works, you don't need to stick with it, but it helps also in terms of getting tracks done quicker. If you feel like I want to get stuff done, it is good to develop like a structure, and then at some point, if you're tired of it, you can mix it up and change it. But as I said, for this kind of music, 4/4, 16, 8, 32 are the measures, and usually if you don't want to go crazy on the break and make it 64 bars long, which in this tempo could result in easy like 5 minutes or something. 3 minutes, as you can see. So all is possible. In this case, I chose 16, and I think it works pretty well. So let's have a listen again from the build peak. So this is the peak moment, then we're building down, taking off, and then we're getting into the break, which I can already put a locator here. Break 1, because I think we have, on this track we only have 1 break. It's interesting. Usually I have 2. This one, it's just 1 break. All right, so from the peak to the break. Here we start building again, and let's just go back to the break for a moment. For me, I love the break. I'm surprised that it's so short here, but usually, going back to the idea of the ceremony, so this is really the part where you can really create a lot of atmosphere, work with effect sounds, work with textures, like this is a part of the track where there's a lot of space in terms of the frequency spectrum, because the kick is not there, and it's energetically a different space. It's a space to relax, to breathe, so I like a lot to use like those shamanic shakers or rain sticks or chacapas or anything that creates this ceremonial kind of vibe, so you can go really crazy on effect sounds in the break and unusual percussions or anything. That's really like a very unique part of the track, and you can make it into a beautiful piece of art. As I said, in this one, it's pretty short, but I think I felt it worked in the context. Just not necessarily breaking the pattern too much of 8 and 16. But let's have a listen again. So basically, of course, the kick is gone, the bass is gone, many elements are gone. There's not much movement. It's more like this moment to take a breath and be enchanted by this ceremonial atmosphere. So the main melody is still going. You don't want to lose the connection, to the overall story and vibe. So you keep somewhat elements that are familiar. And then the drop. And what I like in general is after the drop to have like somewhat like a B section, or like to introduce something that has not been there before. And mainly I do that a lot by changing the pads or the bass line. Like in this case, there's new percussions also, which create a lot more movement. And that's what I like in general. Like after the break, I want the track to be at its peak in terms of the dynamic. So I add elements that make it even more dynamic than before. In this case, like this very rolling kind of percussion. And also the bass line changed a little bit more groovy. And yeah, and then as you see, like it's building up, adding momentum, adding more percussions exponentially. Melodies coming back, the lead. We're building by adding more percussions. Here the claps again. The build down is happening, because we had our moment, usually (16 bars) and then 16 more bars, and then we start to build down, taking elements away. Right, so the main melody is gone now. Lot less percussions. But again, some new percussions because I chose so many and I want to have them all in. So that's sometimes I do that in the build down, bring some new percussions. In this case, the cajon. that's like the part where I call it the mix out part. So this is where you could mix in a new track, right? The DJ friendly kind of part where you still have some percussions and they could mix it in like a new track if it was a DJ set. And then we have the outro, which is basically just a pad. And the filter is closing, so all the high frequencies are fading out slowly. And here you can really clearly also hear the main pad, right, which was the first element that I chose also for this remix. All right, so now we have analyzed this track and we have sort of like a skeleton or like a frame for an arrangement. And the cool thing is when I delete this, the markers are still here. So now I can use this as a guideline. You know, I don't have to stick with it, but it seemed to work. So maybe let's see if we can recreate it with the elements that we have chosen. And if we can come up with an arrangement for that. So I see you in the second part. I will have a listen again and I gonna collect some elements and then I will come back and show you what I've selected and then we will be putting those into an arrangement, hopefully. So see you in a bit.